lot of stuff to talk about. Israel kicking off officially its invasion of Gaza City. On top of that, they're also striking in Yemen, and there's news coming out that Israel is arming, not only arming, but arming and paying the salaries of thousands of Druze fighters in southern Syria while the U.S. is ramping up pressure against Damascus. There was just a missile alert from Yemen in Israel, and central Israel was all under missile warning. That missile was shot down and intercepted, and so all good, no injuries. Let's take a look at what Israel is doing as they're beginning their takeover Gaza City specifically. So you look here, this is last night, going through the fence into Gaza. Those are Israeli Merkava tanks, and accompanied by some pretty serious firepower coming in from the air. Boom, takes out practically a whole city block with that one. They say they've dropped almost 1,000 bombs on just Gaza City, not the entirety of Gaza, just Gaza City. Now, Israel has been warning people to get out of Gaza City for weeks, and a lot of them didn't do it. A lot of them chose to stay until now the bombing started and they're trying to get out. Why is that? Because Hamas has been threatening, cajoling, and trying to trick people into staying in Gaza City because it's its last stronghold. And Gaza City is the place where there are several thousand Hamas fighters, at least 2,000 Hamas fighters. Israel has eliminated probably a couple hundred of them at least per day going in there. They're experiencing very heavy fighting. But so what we're seeing is a continuous ramping up of the tempo of fighting. They have been just ratcheting up the intensity of the attacks on Gaza over the last several weeks. But now, and this is the thing that's been confusing, it's like I thought they started this push into Gaza City a couple weeks ago. But as it turns out, all they've been doing so far has been shaping operations, bombing some of the high rise buildings in Gaza City because Hamas was using those as observation towers and other military purposes. So they've been flattening those buildings, getting rid of the high ground, so to speak. And now they've been doing pinpoint attacks on certain places, people's houses, groups of militants they see carrying weapons, moving between one place and another, that kind of thing. But they have not gone in force until last night. Now they have. Now they are going into Gaza full force. This is like it for them. They are going in and going hard. Now, Hamas has been putting out the word to its mouthpieces, one of which is the UN and other media organizations, to really hit the genocide angle hard. Hit that genocide angle. What we've seen is the United Nations reporting today, or actually last night, that there is indeed that Israel is engaging in the G word in Gaza. Here's the headline. This actually comes from the Jerusalem Post, which is pretty left wing. And they say, Israel committing genocide in Gaza. That's the headline. UN inquiry concludes. What happens is the UN, which the UN doesn't have any jurisdiction in Israel or the United States for that matter, but the UN passes a resolution that says Israel is occupying the territory. And then what do the news articles say? What the news articles will say is Israel occupying Palestinian territory, and then says UN commission. We know for a fact Israel is not committing the G word in Gaza because there are more people in Gaza today than there were at the beginning of the war. Israel could wipe out the Palestinians most likely in an afternoon if they really put their minds to it. You don't send food aid and medical aid into a place where you're trying to wipe out the people group. You don't withdraw your forces like they did in 2005 completely from the area, which the United Nations continued to say was occupied by the IDF, even though there were no Israelis in Gaza from between 2005 and 2023. None. Now, President Trump sent Secretary of State Marco Rubio to Israel to join with the Israeli government show our support, and to inaugurate. One of the things he did while he was there was inaugurated a new portion of the city of David, which we'll talk about in just a minute. President Trump says, I've just read a news report that Hamas has moved the hostages above ground to use them as human shields against Israel's ground offensive. I hope the leaders of Hamas know what they're getting into if they do such a thing. This is a human atrocity, the likes of which few people have ever seen before. Don't let this happen, or all bets are off. Release all hostages now. And you can see there that Ambassador Huckabee retweeted it with the message, let's hope the monsters of Hamas listen to real Donald Trump. The only thing I'm confused about is President Trump did not end his tweet with, thank you for your attention to this matter, which is his tagline on social media. What is unsurprising, again, kudos to President Trump for talking this way. The problem is he keeps threatening all hell will break out, all bets are off, whatever. And we don't really do anything about it. I guess you could say what President Trump means is that we're just going to stand back and we're going to let Israel do whatever the heck they want to do. We're not going to put the brakes on Israel at all for what they're trying to accomplish in Gaza. But I don't think Hamas is disposed to listening to President Trump's threats. I don't think that President Trump's threats really carry much weight with Hamas anymore. At first, they did. President Trump made threats and Hamas released the remaining American hostages. But as I keep saying, Hamas is not going to give up the remaining hostages, all of them, never. They will never give up all of the remaining hostages unless Israel just goes in and gets them. And if Israel goes in to get them, obviously it's getting more and more dangerous by the day for the people that are still being held inside Gaza. Because as the forces close in on Gaza City, many of those hostages are being held in Gaza City. As that news article said, there is word that Hamas is bringing them above ground and putting them in tents and houses and stuff to use them as human shields. They've been doing that all along. That's nothing new. So the likelihood of Hamas saying, all right, we'll release all the rest of the hostages is somewhere between slim and none. It's just not likely to happen. The families of the remaining hostages are obviously beside themselves as they watch this unfold because they're seeing the chances of their loved ones getting home alive diminish by the day. They're holding the government of Israel responsible for this. Hamas isn't even accepting any deals right now. The only deal Hamas will accept is for Israel to completely evacuate all of their troops from Gaza and stop the war for good. They will never give up 100% of the hostages they hold in Gaza, barring some miracle. There is a group of families of the hostages that are now setting up a protest camp in front of the residence of Benjamin Netanyahu in Jerusalem. There's always protesters there, but I guess there's a lot more of them now, and they're camping out in the street and all this stuff. And all that does, it does not make the Israeli government any more likely to accept a bad deal from Hamas. And that's the only kind of deal that they are going to get from Hamas. Okay. So Israel is pushing deeper into the heart of Gaza City now with two divisions of troops. We're talking about probably 40,000 troops total, something like that. That's major, huge. Now, the IDF put out a map of Gaza showing the progress that they've made throughout the war. And I want to show that now. So here's the Gaza Strip. And you can see there the northern Gaza Strip, Gaza City, the central camps, Khan Yunis, and Rafah. And so this is starting in March of 2025. You can see as they've closed off, taken over all of Rafah, Operation Gideon's Chariots. It's continuing. And so what this essentially means is that the Gaza Strip that the Palestinians can live in has gotten much, much smaller and will continue to get smaller and stay smaller for good. Israel is saying that they're not giving this territory back, that there's going to be a large buffer zone around the edges of Gaza where it meets Israeli territory, and it'll be no man's land in there. They're bulldozing everything in there. It's going to be nothing but dirt, and the amount of land that the Palestinians can live in is getting smaller and smaller. Secretary of State Marco Rubio went to Israel this weekend. He visited the Western Wall. He met with leaders of the IDF and the Israeli government. He did this on behalf of President Trump and expressed his unwavering support and America's unwavering support for Israel. And then he attended a ceremony and spoke at a ceremony that took place in a tunnel. That tunnel exists underground, and the tunnel goes from the city of David to the Western Wall there on this side in the Jewish quarter of the old city. Oh, yeah, right down here. There is what they call the city of David. And the city of David is basically part of the old city of Jerusalem. It's a archaeological dig. Here's the archaeological dig for the city of David right here. And this is what it looks like. It's down below the street level because the level of the ancient city of Jerusalem was lower than the current level of the city because they keep building on top of ancient ruins, right? And you can see here a lot of the archaeological excavations that have been made in the city of David. Now, there's a tunnel that they've been excavating that goes from what was the Temple Mount over here, and this is the Western Wall right here. Okay, right on the edge of the Temple Mount. So there's a tunnel underground that goes from the city of David here underground about, I don't know, more than a quarter mile, a third to a half a mile over here to the edge of the Western Wall. And it was a pilgrimage tunnel that allowed people to make their way over to that temple. And so this is just being uncovered by archaeologists, and it's going to be turned into a tourist attraction. All of that to say that Secretary of State Marco Rubio went to Jerusalem and participated in the inauguration ceremony for this new tourist tunnel that goes from down here in the city of David. I just want to show you a video from that ceremony.
It was here that the lessons that form the base rock and the foundations of our laws, of the principles upon which we decide what is right and what is wrong, was built upon.
The stones absolutely and 100% validate that the Jewish people not only belong here now, but they have belonged here for 4,000 years, since the time God said to Abraham.
There's the city of David in the bottom.
For God's promise is eternal, and it is perfect, and his word is always true. And I'm honored to be a part of this moment.